Sometimes mistakes happen in movies, it's pretty normal, someone can be tired, they can forget their lines, a scene can be messed up with faulty wiring, bad timing, or anything that might happen. In 1942, bright-eyed and London-born Elizabeth Taylor made her Hollywood debut in the film One Born Every Minute. There are times however when those mistakes might actually enhance the movie and are thus kept in, making it look as though the moment was meant to happen in this manner and is completely natural. She was a near-instant success, an incredible feat for a 10-year-old. Unlike many child stars, Taylor was able to navigate the tricky waters of show business and transition into adulthood with the same level of success. Beyond having a long and fulfilling career, Taylor led a personal life that some would dub scandalous. With one sordid affair and a whopping 7 marriages, Taylor could have written the book on romance. Thankfully for us, the audience, there are those that don't mind revealing that said scenes are often the result of a happy or unforeseen accident that wasn't intended in the least, but somehow did its part to make the shot even better. Despite her many marriage mates, Taylor had just 4 children: Michael Wilding Jr., Chris Wilding, Liza Todd, and Maria Burton. Her grandchildren, however, number into the double digits. According to Vanity Fair, Taylor enjoyed having her 10 grandkids, along with her own children, visit her at her home, an impressive mansion in Bel Air. Although she has since passed, Elizabeth Taylor's grandchildren are keeping her legacy alive, and did we mention they're absolutely gorgeous? Get ready to see for yourself. Layla Wilding, Elizabeth Taylor's first granddaughter in 1971, Taylor got to meet her very first grandchild, Layla Wilding. Such scenes can create an emotional and sometimes very powerful addition that might not have been there to begin with, proving that fate has a very funny sense of humor now and again and that cause and effect can actually work to one's benefit in the strangest of moments. It's also a good lesson in how even the best laid plans sometimes go awry, but end up causing an even greater effect than that which was intended. Here are a few scenes that weren't planned but helped to make their respective movies even better. 5. Flag rip. Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. When Éowyn is standing near the main hall and the flag rips in the Two Towers, the moment was supposedly ruined by the winds taking the flag right from the pole, but in truth it made the situation in Rohan look even more desperate as it underlined the very real emotion that people were meant to feel. This was a time in the movie when it was obvious that Rohan had fallen on hard times and needed help. It's a lot to take from a simple accident, but the fact that Éowyn was standing there looking forlorn went a long way towards conveying the need that the land and its people possessed in that moment. 4. I'm Walking Here. Midnight Cowboy. This actually wasn't scripted when Dustin Hoffman and Jon Voight were trying to cross the street since the street was still open for business considering that there was no permit to close it down. Growing up in Northern California, Layla spent lots of time with her grandmother, including almost every holiday and occasional Sundays. So the cab driver almost hitting Hoffman and Voight, who had to shoot this scene multiple times to get their timing down, was very real and had no idea that he was being filmed. In fact, the crew was filming from a van and using long-distance microphones in order to make it all work. But this one scene made it come together in a way that they obviously weren't planning for but lucked out with in a big way. 3. Leonardo DiCaprio's injury. Django Unchained. This is a scene that's been talked about on multiple sites for a while since Django was released, but it shows DiCaprio's dedication to the role, vile as it was. Though they were close, Layla told Art and Understanding magazine that her grandmother didn't play favorites, all grandkids were loved by Taylor equally. Layla recounted memories of her grandmother cutting her hair. She was very artistic. She had a great eye, Layla explained. She also enjoyed helping with makeup, smoky eye was key, and styling. She once said to me, "If you've got it, flaunt it," Layla revealed to the magazine. When he slams his hand down on the table and it's seen that his hand comes up bloody, that's real. He did in fact hurt himself and was adamant about continuing the shot to make it look as authentic as possible. Not your typical grandmotherly advice, but, then again, Elizabeth Taylor was not your typical grandmother. These days, Layla is a graphic designer in Portland, Oregon and works closely with the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation, as Taylor did when she was alive. "We are determined to support the legacy of our grandmother and let the world know the foundation is thriving," she explained. Naomi DeLuce Wilding. A different kind of grandmother-granddaughter relationship. Layla's little sister, Naomi DeLuce Wilding, came into the world in 1975. A lot of actors might have been seeking medical attention at that point, but Dicaprio was firm in keeping the camera rolling as he wanted to make this as authentic as possible. Despite being just 4 years apart in age, they had different relationships with Taylor. Unlike Layla, Naomi was only able to see her grandmother over the holidays due to living in the United Kingdom. In the late 90s, Naomi decided to take a job as a fashion designer in an attempt to get a green card. After her Manhattan apartment was burglarized, Taylor stepped in to help her second-born granddaughter. She said, "I'll get you a lawyer, we'll get you a green card, and everything will be okay." I came to stay with her and I never left California. Naomi told Art and Understanding magazine. For nearly 2 years, she resided with her grandmother and called the experience amazing. Like her big sis, Naomi is also an ambassador for the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation. It is nice to know that there are actors out there willing to suffer a bit for their roles. 2. Additionally, she runs the Wilding Cran Gallery, a contemporary art gallery, in Los Angeles, California, along with her husband, Anthony Cran. Don Corleone's aloofness, The Godfather. It sounds as though Marlon Brando was notorious when it came to his refusal to learn his lines, and as a result the director had to use notes that were posted in various places, giving Don Corleone the feeling of being aloof as he never looked at the person he was speaking to. This sounds insanely lazy, especially when it comes to such a legendary actor that was known to be one of the best, but obviously it worked since working with the man had to have been a little frustrating if he didn't want to learn his lines as everyone else did. Like Taylor, Naomi has grown up to be a true success. Elizabeth, Eliza, Carson, the granddaughter with Taylor's namesake. Taylor's adopted daughter, Maria Burton, with husband Richard Burton, went on to have a child of her own in 1982. She decided to name her little girl Elizabeth Carson. When Elizabeth, or Eliza as she prefers to be called, was a teenager, she often stayed at her grandmother's sprawling estate. Keeping the notes out of sight and where he could still see them had to be tough. 1. Hospital explosion. The Dark Knight. This scene was actually made a bit comical despite how serious it was supposed to be, since Heath Ledger was genuinely wondering just why the explosions hadn't gone off just yet. So when we see him fiddling with the device, he's actually making the scene to hide the fact that what was supposed to happen hadn't happened yet. Once the explosions did start popping off though, he reacted beautifully and kept the scene rolling as he made his escape. Sometimes they'd even travel together. Eliza told Over 60 that they'd once vacationed in the Dominican Republic for 2 weeks, but they didn't want to say goodbye, so Eliza ended up spending the whole summer with her grandmother. While Eliza admitted that she loved the glitz and glamour of her grandmother's lifestyle, she appreciated her humanitarianism most of all. This was the kind of mastery that Heath had during his career, and it was absolutely stunning to watch since he played it off so well. Sometimes a mistake is the best plan that was never made. She always stood up for what was right, said Taylor's third-born granddaughter. Eliza has copied her grandmother in that aspect too. "I work for the Department of Child Protection in Manhattan. I'm doing social work," she explained. Like her older cousins, she, too, is an ambassador for the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation. Caleb and Andrew Wilding, the first grandsons in the early 1980s, Taylor met her very first grandson, Caleb Wilding. Caleb was adopted by Christopher Wilding and his wife Aileen Getty after Getty had several unsuccessful pregnancies. "It was traumatic because I really wanted a child," she told People. After adopting Caleb, Getty did go on to have a successful pregnancy and gave birth to a son, Andrew Wilding. Getty received more traumatic news when Caleb was a toddler and Andrew was only 6 months old. She tested positive for HIV. She took Caleb and Andrew and fled to New York City where she binged on cocaine. "I just lost it," the mother of 2 admitted. For a time, Caleb and Andrew were removed from her custody. "My children are my lifeline. But they deserved better," Getty told People. Getty did eventually get clean and, from the looks of it, Caleb and Andrew have grown up unscathed. Andrew has even taken to Hollywood, much like his grandmother, as a cinematographer. Quinn Tyvee, is he, raunchy, like his grandmother? While speaking at Town & Country's Philanthropy Summit, Taylor's 6th grandchild and the child of Liza Todd Burton and Hap Tyvee, Quinn Tyvee, spilled tea about his late grandmother. "A lot of people do not know this, but Grandma could be really raunchy," he told the crowd via Page 6. "I remember going to her house and getting into bed with her, wearing my pajamas, watching Law and Order, eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches," he revealed. Grandma goals. Quinn grew up to be an artist as well as a co-trustee of the Elizabeth Taylor Trust, Town and Country reported. After his beloved grandmother's death, he and his cousin participated in an event in her honor. It was there that Quinn knew he wanted to be more involved in the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation. Through that experience we had the opportunity to see how crucial it was for her family to be participating in her legacy, he explained. Tarquin Wilding, number 7 in this, wacky, caring, sensitive, family. Tarquin Wilding, not to be confused with Quinn Tyvee, is Layla and Naomi Wilding's younger brother and the 7th grandchild to Taylor. The Taylor family tree is, of course, only made exponentially more confusing when cousins, like Tarquin and Quinn, share such similar names. That's not all Tarquin has in common with his family members, though. Similar to Andrew Wilding's career as a cinematographer, Tarquin grew up to embrace Hollywood. At just 28 years old, he's already working as a filmmaker. Tarquin is also close with his large family and reminisces fondly about his grandmother. I often think about how lucky I am to have been born into a group of such wacky, caring, sensitive people, he told Town and Country. We admire my grandmother for her boundless generosity, and I believe that we all feel grateful to be able to honor and continue her legacy. Especially together. Surely, Taylor would feel equally grateful for her amazing grandchildren. Lowell Wilding, the grandson archiving Taylor's life. I was always in total awe of the good my grandmother was able to accomplish in her lifetime, Lowell Wilding told the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation. It's obvious that Lowell's love and appreciation for his grandmother runs deep. She could so easily have done nothing, like so many others. Instead she fought, she cared, and she worked for people suffering with HIV/AIDS, Taylor's 8th grandchild explained. Lowell said his hope is to continue her legacy, as well as preserve it. He has since backed up his words with actions. As of this writing, he is working to create a new addition to the Elizabeth Taylor Trust, an Elizabeth Taylor archive. What a beautiful tribute to his late grandmother. Lowell, not unlike many of his relatives, lives in Los Angeles. This way, he is but a hop, skip, and a jump away from Beverly Hills, where his grandmother's trust is based and her legacy is, as Lowell hoped, preserved and continued. Rhys Tyvee, an accomplished and artsy grandson at 27, Rhys Tyvee has already accomplished so much. According to the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation, Rhys grew up in a rural part of upstate New York before moving to the city to pursue a Bachelor's of Music in Jazz Performance at the New York University Steinhardt School of Culture, Education, and Human Development. These days, he is a triple threat: a trumpeter, vocalist, and a songwriter. In addition to performing throughout the Big Apple, Rhys has taught music and yoga to middle school children all over the city, from Brooklyn to Manhattan to the Bronx. He definitely echoes his grandmother's legacy, which is, as he says, to acknowledge the soul of every person, and treat them with great respect, regardless of color, culture, or class. Not only that, but, as a vegan, Rhys told Vegan Food and Living that he's very interested in reducing his carbon footprint. Climate change is a giant concern, and I hope will be for everyone, especially those in my generation and younger, he explained. Richard McEwen, grandbaby number 10. Although not much is known about Elizabeth Taylor's youngest grandchild, 17-year-old Richard McEwen, we do know he was swept up in all kinds of drama as a child. According to Wales Online, Richard, who is named after his grandfather, was living with his mother, Maria Burton, when she filed a restraining order against Tom McEwen, young Richard's father. In a familiar case of he said she said, McEwen claimed his wife hadn't been functioning as a mother when a restraining order for verbal abuse came out of nowhere, supposedly, of course. I ended up homeless, he explained. Maria Burton's friend, on the other hand, said there had been violence against Maria, and that's why the courts have given her custody of her son.
Mike McCormick, director of the American Coalition for Fathers and Children, who supported McEwen, further added, "It's a tragedy not only for him, but for a child too young to express his loss. Thankfully, her grandson appears to be just fine, according to his Facebook page, and we haven't heard any more talk of custody battles. No news is good news, right?"